Hello and welcome to one of the Printed Poetry Symposium online talks. My name is Barrie Tullett and I am so not a poet. My background is technically in illustration. I studied at the Chelsea School of Art as an illustrator, but in my final year I'd become more and more interested in letterpress and typography, and I ended up creating a series of typographic prints for Dante's Divine Comedy. So I graduated as a printmaker, really, who was using type to make illustrations with. But because I had words in my portfolio, I became a graphic designer. And I've since worked with poets and accidentally have become a kind of poet. But I'm so not a poet. Having said that, I am listed on the website as a concrete poet, an early 21st century experimental concrete poet, although I don't know what other kinds there are. I'm also a late 20th century concrete poet, I'm that old. And I'm part of a book by Chris McCabe and Victoria Bean called The New Concrete, which is concrete poetry in the 21st century. I was lucky enough to have my work exhibited at the South Bank Centre in the Poetry Library, and also was invited by the British Council to be part of a poetry event with 6 British contemporary poets and 6 German contemporary poets in the Lyrik Kabinett in Munich. So I guess I'm kind of am a poet, even though it wouldn't occur to me to call myself a poet. I've also written the world's only book of concrete poetry knock-knock jokes. Knock, 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 knock. Who's there? Ewan Gomringer. It's not a big seller. So there we are, that's me, and I'm not a poet. Well, I'm not a poet who writes verse, but I guess I am a kind of poet. I teach graphic design at the University of Lincoln, and I still work as a freelance graphic designer using contemporary technology to make my work, but my own practice tends to be with commercially obsolete processes. I enjoy working with letterpress, typewriters and Letraset, and more hands-on things like stencil sets and such like. So these are some concrete poems. So these 2 pieces are both pop culture references to football and formations. The first one, the concrete poetry constellation, is letterpress, silver ink on black paper, and the constellation is the dots which form a football team. And the right hand side one, typewriter 11, is a list of no longer commercially running typewriter manufacturers which form their own special typewriter 11. I also do work which is playing with language and pastiche. This is 2 pieces which are based on an old Pepsi Cola advert. This is platen rolling, key striking, carriage moving, tabulating, ribbon spooling, colour switching, caps locking, shift keying, backspacing, art making, typewriting. Or wood typing, typewriting, hand setting, flat bedding, coin turning, type leading, chase locking, dab handing, under inking, quick dissing, letterpress. If you Google the Pepsi ad, you can hear the rhythm of how it was spoken slightly more clearly, so I'd recommend you do that if you are interested. That one actually became something useful in that it was rewritten by Ken Coburn the poet, and we letterpressed it as a fundraiser for the Scottish Poetry Library up in Edinburgh. I don't have no idea how much money it made. The other one is obviously a play on Philip Larkin, and it's a piece of work that parents look at, smile, pick up, laugh at, put back down again, rather than buy. I can see why you might not want that hanging in your house, just to let you know your kids have ruined your life. On the less stop go, the idea of semantic games is quite intriguing, I think, and visual language and what we expect things to be and what we're culturally conditioned for. And on the right, another series of things, another outcome is found poetry. This really was my daughter's first shopping list, and I kept it in a frame for ages because I thought it was such a lovely thing, then decided to make a poster of it, which I sold at book fairs, and some years later this was, and my daughter realised I was selling it. She sent me an invoice and also reminded me that I hadn't actually cleared the copyright with her to use her work. A Song for an Art School, this is the piece I'm going to talk about more clearly and more pointedly. Another found poem, if it can be called that. When we go to exam boards, we have the joy and delight of sitting in a room where screeds and screeds and screeds of information go up on screen, which detail all the student reports. It details all the module grades, it details their past progress rates, it details attendance, all these different things. You tend to sit in a room for a long time with various different courses, illustration, graphic design, fashion, whatever, and only the bits to do with your course are really the ones that you can have any input into. And so you spend a lot of time looking at the screen go past. One of the things I noticed was that one of the things that didn't change was the course code. Everything else changes, student names, all the grades and things, but the one thing that's consistent is that course code for graphic design. It's GRA, GRA, UB, UB meaning undergraduate board. And I noticed that the course codes for the School of Design that we were in at the time, Lincoln School of Design, were ADADUB, AADADUB, which is Art, Architecture and Design, I think. ANIANIUB, which is animation, ARTARTUB, which was fine art, CLUMCLUMUB, which was contemporary lens media or photography, CONCONUB was conservation, FASFASUB was fashion, GRAGRAUB was graphic design, ISGISGUB was interactive screen-based graphics, and ILILUB was illustration. PRUDUB was product design. I was working at the time with Jack Zipes, the American folklorist, on a book of fairy tales based on Kurt Schwitter's. His writings, he wrote quite a lot of fairy tales, which is published by Princeton, I think, called Lucky Hands. It was a lovely book to work on. I was obviously very intrigued by Kurt Schwitter's. I like his work a lot, as most people I know do. And you either like him as a fine artist and collage artist, or like him as an advertising creative typographer, I think. And you find out he has another side to his character. So you discover him as a fine artist and realise he had a creative career as a designer, typographer as well. Or you discover him as a designer, typographer, and then find out he had a creative career as a fine artist as well. So I really like his work, and he was famously created Ursonate, a sound poem. And I was watching these things go past on the screen and thinking that Kurt Schwitters would sing this. This would be a song. This would be a song for an art school. And one of the things I thought was interesting was the fact it became a shorthand for creativity, that you can quantify all these things in module codes and learning outcomes and all these kind of things. And it seemed very poignant somehow to me that this is what we've become as an art school. So I produced a poster, first of all, a song for an art school. ADADUB, FASFASUB, GRAGRAUB, ANIANIUB, CONCONUB, ISGISGUB, CLUMCLUMUB, ARTARTUB, ILILUB, PRUDUB. And that was okay, that was quite interesting. And then we had a new wall space was created, a corridor between our two buildings. We moved into a new build. We had this huge long glass corridor. And I don't remember why, I think one of the directors of research has seen the poster poem, and thought it would be a brilliant installation piece. So I recreated it as an installation on the wall of the building. So it had a song for an art school and it had these course codes. Most people thought it was just nonsense. They didn't understand what it was. It was just these gobbledygook words. But all the clerical staff that dealt with our admin and dealt with the exam boards knew what they meant. And they thought it was really funny that these words were kind of taken out of context. So there was people who walked past it slightly baffled. People who walked past it not even noticing it. People who walked past it assuming it was art, so that was fine. And people who walked past it knowing that there was some kind of joke there, or some kind of comment, or some kind of context. I made it into an artist book, which was digitally printed rather than using the letterpress. I don't know why I decided not to letterpress it. There must have been a reason in my head, but I can't remember what it was. And it became, and very shortly it became a second edition. The Lincoln School of Art, which had been running from 1863 in various guises, was consumed by the university. It became Lincoln School of Design within the College of Arts in the University of Lincoln. We were part of the university for quite a long time, but we had a kind of slight independence to us, but we were formally part of the university at that point. So it became a requiem for an art school, and I added UL for University of Lincoln rather than UB undergraduate board. So it became RFSUL, which sounds like a hemorrhoid cream. I had the pleasure of actually performing this. I'd always intended it to be a sound poem because of Kurt Schwitter's and the reference there, but never had actually performed it until I was invited down to the Whitechapel Gallery to launch, as part of the launch for the New Concrete, the book by Chris McCabe and Victoria Bean. it was quite an event to be in, and there were proper poets, concrete poets, and me, and I thought I would talk about the reason behind this particular piece, which was different from the piece that was in the book, and the idea that it was a cry from an art school in a way, and it was a kind of idea of universities are amazing places, obviously incredible places, and so are art schools, and they're different things historically, and now they're becoming the same thing, which is a shame, I think. So the actual performance piece of a song for an art school, you might need to stand back from your screens for this. Ad, uba, faz, uba, gra, ub, anni, uba, con, uba, iska, uba, glum, uba, out, uba, ila, ub, purd, ub. Thank you very much. If that doesn't go viral, I don't know what will. I performed this in Munich as well as part of the Klang Farben Text Event. You can see me there, poised to deliver one of the more complicated bits of grammatical expression. I think it took the audience by storm. I think it certainly took them by surprise. I think I gave it my full welly. I redid this after that because that was the first time it had been performed on as a sound poem with the full kind of range of potential for the voice, or some potential for the voice. So I went back into the workshop letterpress and tried to catch that idea of how these words might sound. Uba, grauba. And the next stage of the song for an art school is going to be a series of these letterpress interpretations where I'm trying to capture the nature of sound, the or the ooh, so uba. It rather depends on all the odds and sods I've got in my collection of type, obviously, because I can only say ooh. I can't say ooh because I don't have a long ooh, a big fat U at the moment. But that's one of the things I'm planning to work on. So it's going to become those various things, and its final I think iteration will be this idea of going back to Ursnet and Kurt Schwitter's, and this idea of this sequence which you have. I was going to film myself performing it and then take stop frames out so that they can become little flick books. And then the final piece of work will be a box set with flick books inside it, and the cover of the flick book will be the onomatopoeic letterpress, and then the flick book will be my face speaking those words. So the Song for an Art School has been a lovely piece of found poetry. Someone once said that they couldn't imagine anyone ever finding creativity in an exam board, so I feel quite proud of that. And it has at least another one iteration to go to make it a thing. Maybe I'll be like Steve McCaffrey. Perhaps I'll create a carnival piece based on it, so it's even more ambitious. Who knows? But thank you for listening to all that. Thank you for watching the video, assuming you got this far. I am Barrie Tullett. I am an unpoet, if not a poet. Maybe a sound poet. Maybe a found poet. You never know, maybe a concrete poet. Thank you very much.